Welcome to my show. I'm a guest here. Her name is Ashlee Kaufman. Mrs. Ashlee, how are you doing, ma?
I am good. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you very much, Mrs. Ashlee. Firstly, you are a physician assistant. Can you please, Mrs. Ashlee, discuss more about yourself and how you are doing currently now, ma?
Yes, I've been in the wellness and healthcare space for over 30 years. I have treated my own patients. I have worked for some of the largest supplement companies in the world. I have formulated over 200 products and have 4 patents under my name.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Ashlee. And I would like to also dive to the point of book. You might have probably written any book, Ashley. Have you written any book, or are you personally planning to write any book in the coming future, Ashley?
No, I haven't written a book. And I have discussed with a couple of colleagues about writing about DNA and methylation, just because I think that's the piece that the consumers need to learn more about is our genetic makeup versus kind of blindly taking supplements and doing protocols that maybe aren't beneficial to them. So we've considered it, but no, we have not.
All right. Thank you so much, Mrs. Ashley. I would like to dive to the point of DNA and the influence to our overall health. I think when I was, I think the DNA, like, how do you think DNA influence our overall health? And what do you think it can, possibly reveal about our unique needs, Ashley?
So our DNA influences how our bodies process nutrients, how it responds to like environmental factors, manages essential nutrients and functions like metabolism, inflammation, detoxification. Um, and how we can utilize that is by understanding our nutrition, absorption, and metabolism needs for our body. And if we have any type of methylation like B12, vitamin D, folate, and our body isn't able to absorb it in a natural way, understanding this DNA absorption is critical to being able to take supplements. Also, how our body reacts. So, if for example, we have a low fat absorption, then you obviously want to have a low fat diet. If you have a high metabolism of fat absorption, then you can eat a high fat diet. So DNA is critical to influence how our body reacts to our wellness journey.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Ashley. You know, the way DNA helps someone to probably process the way they have their carbohydrates, they have their protein, their fats. If someone is fat, someone can just use the fat area. I would like to dive to the point of vitamin and also mineral deficiencies. I would like to know if DNA also personally, you know, tests, can identify someone who has this vitamin and mineral deficiencies, Mrs. Ashley. Do you think DNA testing can identify vitamin and mineral deficiencies before they could cause health issues, Mrs. Ashley?
Yes, so DNA is not like taking a blood test with your physician where it doesn't give you the live results of what your vitamins are at that time. What it tells you is what your kind of predisposition to have. So, for example, if you have a certain gene that you're not able to take in proteins a certain way. It's just basically giving you the blueprint or the map of the way your body takes in and absorbs. So if you have an iron deficiency, you might currently have it at the time, but what we're testing for is that you're already prone to have an iron deficiency because of a certain gene or methylation.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Ashley. And I would like to also dive to the point of weight loss and body connection. A lot of people are also fighting today to have this serious weight loss. Some people have a lot of weight that they would like to lose. I would like to ask if gene if I'm correct, though, DNA, is connected to gene, if I'm correct. So how do you think gene affect weight loss and body decomposition, Mrs. Ashley?
It's actually a really huge part because there's several genes, like for example, the AMY1 gene determines how we break down starches. And it's part of your carbohydrate metabolism. You have a gene that's associated with insulin regulation, which gives you the risk of type 2 diabetes. You've got a gene for fat metabolism that affects how your body processes saturated fats. There's a protein metabolism that also affects how you intake process of proteins. So understanding what your body makeup is and what your body needs to lose weight or keep a healthy weight is important because, for example, some people will say, oh, go on a high protein diet. But if your body doesn't metabolism protein effectively, then that high protein diet isn't going to work for you. I think that's kind of how like some people will say, oh, I took that, it didn't work, or I did that diet and it didn't work. Well, it's because you really don't understand the fundamentals of your body. And once you do, like there are some people that lose weight on a high fat diet because their metabolism wants fat. It metabolizes fat pretty quickly. So it's very important to understand which genes you have so that you can then kind of basically change up your weight loss journey based off of those factors and feed your body exactly what it's actually craving.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Ashley. And I definitely completely agree with you with that. When someone is just having a situation like this, they'll just say, go and eat this, just go for protein or eat more carbohydrate or stuff like that. And even I
Yeah.
myself, sometimes there's some food that I used to like, even fried plantain, that I used to eat that really, really helps my body. But probably if probably my brother or my sister eats it, some people that I know eat it, it might not really definitely help them in the way it is helping me. So, probably mine might not be protein. I do not know. But there are some food that definitely, probably I eat and I'm like, this thing is really helping my body. It's making me to lose weight and stuff like that. So I would like to also dive to the point of lifestyle changes. Some people might be in a position whereby the lifestyle they are having during their recent time has changed. Maybe probably due to maybe changing of location or probably some people are more they have more wealth or stuff like that. So, do you think lifestyle changes can override genetic risks for certain diseases, Mrs. Ashley?
I do. I think that, just because our DNA is mapped out a certain way and to have certain things, like for example, there is risks of cardiac issues, there's risk of type 2 diabetes, there's risks of certain illnesses. It's kind of like what I like to call, disease interception. So you have a chance to intercept potential disease that your body's already mapped out to have. And lifestyle is critical. So if you understand, for example, maybe your kidneys aren't filtrating at a high level. Well, let me protect and change my lifestyle. Let me protect my kidneys for so that the future of my kidneys, we push that disease down the road versus having it during our lifespan. So I think for sure, if you change your lifestyles based off of what your genetic profile exposes, you 100% can change your destiny of your longevity and your wellness if you make those appropriate changes.
Now I know why when I changed my location like this, because there was a time that there was a very far distance. When I just changed location like this, I definitely have some type of probably some sickness that used to come on, stuff like that. So I think it definitely was. Thank you so much, Mrs. Ashley. And some people prefer, when it comes to DNA testing, they prefer doing their DNA testing in their home. Some people like comfortability. Some people like this type of life that they just want to be comfortable. So I would like to know if you think, you have something in mind you think people should know before taking an at-home DNA health test, Mrs. Ashley.
Yeah, I think that just understanding that, your genes are not your destiny and it is just a roadmap of what type of genes you have. I think it's important to make sure that you go with a trusted lab and make sure that the privacy of your results can be in your control. If you decide to delete them, that you have the ability to delete them off of the platform. And that it also is not giving you live results. It's giving you the blueprint. So it's kind of like looking at a house and looking at the blueprint of the house. But at some point, if you didn't want, let's just say, the kitchen where it's laid out, then you can change it at any time before it's built. So it's kind of the same concept, is that you're doing this to really understand what your future could look like, but you can change that. You can have an obesity gene called the FTO, but it doesn't mean that you're going to be obese. It just means you have that gene and you have to be able to understand what that gene means so that you can change your lifestyle. So it's definitely not a doomsday report. It's really actually an enlightening report of saying, I want to be healthier. And based off of my genetic makeup, because we're all very uniquely different, we're like a fingerprint, and we need to understand our bodies so that we can then change our lifestyle for that.
Thank you
So I
so much.
think so I think it's important just to, again, make sure you choose a reputable company, know that it's not live results, that it's just your genetic makeup, and that it's also not your destiny. It's just basically the blueprint.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Ashlee. Thank you so much for that insight, Mrs. Ashlee. And I would like to also dive to. I don't know, probably if you watch football, because women really watch football. So when an injury happens, and maybe probably in the news time we just hear this person is having a 6 month injury. This person is having a two. My question: how do they used to know that it lasts to that time? Sometimes I used to get confused. Like, how do they know that it lasts to that point? So I would like to ask this question: Do you think DNA testing can predict the risk of sports injury and also muscle recovery rates, Mrs. Ashlee?
Yeah, I do think that understanding your DNA can kind of predict your risks and your risk factor for injury
Wow.
by, basically looking at markers related to tissue structure, inflammation, oxidative stress. Like for example, like you have a gene that is basically affects your collagen production, which some people might have a low collagen production, some might have a high collagen production. There's a gene that plays a role in your post-exercise inflammation. So you might get high inflammation after a football game. I might get low inflammation. So it really depends on that. And then there's also a gene for muscle growth and fatigue and how your muscles are. Are they high in fiber? Like, do they need like long exercises like long distance running, or do they need in the gym training with weights? So everything is uniquely different based off of those gene types. So it can predict if you did a DNA test and you saw that you had certain um, genes or mutations or methylations, you could actually change the way you exercise and the way you do physical endurance or sports for your body and get better results and less risk factors based off of those genes.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Ashley. That means that there are some people that they can run around a football field 10 times. And there are some people that when they do it 8 times, they will be like getting tired of it. But some people can do it more than 20 times because we are definitely different. That is really, really massive. That means the person who can do it 8 times and get tired needs to do more exercise, probably needs to do more of exercise and stuff like that than the person who can do it 10 times and will not get tired. Wow, that is very, very massive. Thank you so much, Mrs. Ashley. I would like to dive to the point of privacy concern. Some people, the biggest thing people used to think about in this life that we are is privacy. How are my information, safe? Where is it being kept? Privacy concern is very, very, very huge. What do you think are the privacy concerns surrounding DNA health testing, Mrs. Ashley?
Yeah, I do think it's a huge concern, and I think there's companies out there that sell data, and there's companies out there that only do it for the wellness purpose. And I think making sure that you before you have a DNA test, I think it's important to kind of find out the rules of that particular company and their regulations of what they do. If they give you claims that we do not sell any of the data, if they give you the ability to take off your data and delete it from their platform and they don't store it, little things like that that give you that control to be able to know, because again, it is your DNA, it is something for you, and it's very important to know those guidelines of the individual company before you do a DNA test.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Ashley. It's very, very important. Privacy is one of the biggest thing one usually gets worried about. And I would also lastly, I would like to dive to the point of misconception. I do not know if there is any probably misconception when it comes to people want to get an insight when it comes to DNA, Mrs. Ashlee. What do you think is the biggest misconception people have about personalized health DNA insights, Mrs. Ashlee?
I think one of the conceptions is misconceptions is that people think that it is kind of their current status. People will read it like, okay, I'm low in B12, when it might not mean immediately you're currently in low in B12. It just means that your body's already predispositioned to have low B12. And understanding how you read those results is not about the current state. It is about what your body is just made up to have. So, for example, if you have the gene for Alzheimer's, it doesn't mean it's doomsday to have Alzheimer's. It just means that you're predispositioned to potentially have it. And there are factors and lifestyle changes you can make to either push it down the road or never get it at all during your life. So I think a lot of people will read, the reports and think that they have to make those immediate changes, especially when it comes to nutrients and minerals and vitamins. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to now overdose yourself on vitamins and minerals. It just means, okay, take a look at it, maybe go see your physician, have a blood work done, just to see kind of what you're currently deficient in. Then you'll know how to supplement your body based off of your current deficiencies. But it doesn't mean that you're currently at that role. It just means that your body will naturally. So, for example, if you're low in B12 and you don't really take a B12 supplement and you don't eat foods that are high in B12, then you probably are low because your body's already mapped up to be low. But again, I think people read it and think that's their current state, and that's not necessarily what it means.
Exactly, I completely agree. It's just let's just make it about like it's just like a support, something that could just let you know, okay, these are things that you can do that could improve your health through the DNA test you've done. It's not something that you have to now start to do and intensify it because people when they hear that, is even people are always scared of stuff like that. When they hear that this is happening, you are not if you don't take this, they'll be like, oh, it's my health, I have to take it, then they will just take it too much. Maybe that was what's probably used to happen most of the time but just like a support to make someone just understand. Thank you so much, Mrs. Ashlee. Lastly, Mrs. Ashlee, there's a question I normally ask during the end of the show from our forefathers, from the fathers who have passed on during the historic time. There are a lot of things that do exist during our forefathers' time that is missing in our time today. If there is anyone or anything you would like to bring back to our time today, what do you think that thing will be, Mrs. Ashlee?
Um, does it have to be with wellness or can it be with anything?
It could be with anything, Mrs. Ashlee.
I think if I could bring back is the good old handshake of the human's word. So if I made a promise to you and we didn't have to have a contract, we didn't have to have any legal paperwork, it's just my promise to you. Back in our previous fathers, a handshake of I promise would be good enough. I don't think it's that way anymore. I think there's a trust issue, there's a loyalty issue, there's people standing at their word and meaning what they say. So if I could bring anything back, it would be that what we say is our truth and it is what we will do
Mm,
versus having to make legal documents, make kind of that concern of it's not going to happen. If I told you I'd do something, I'm going to do it. And it doesn't matter what piece of paper is in front of us because it's what we're going to do. So back in the day, handshake was enough. I just don't think handshake's enough anymore.
I completely agree with you, Mrs. Ashley. What you said currently now is really massive. It's happening everywhere. Even I just want to go to that point, but even men does it a lot. They'll just try crow lies. I love you. All those, all those lies, all those things. I love you. And all those things are a bunch of lies. Honestly speaking, they are not really like sincere about what they are saying. They just want to catch that attention. A lot of things like that happen. There's nothing like something that one sincerely mean that meaning that I am going to do it and definitely it might take time, but it will definitely happen. That thing is that's true. It's really, really missing our time to deal. It's really missing. We hope and it's come back. Things like that. Genuine stuff come back, genuine promise and just say something that you know that you could definitely one can definitely accomplish. My apologies, Mrs. Ashlee. I want to sincerely thank you for the time and the opportunity you've given the audience, and also me the time and everything. Thank you so much, Mrs. Ashlee.
I agree. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed it.
All right, my wonderful day. Bye bye.
Bye.